Welcome back to Three Bridges. So I think this will be the May update if I finally get it out. April, I spent most of the time just playing in the loft really with my trains. So May I want to crack on and get the scenics from Wendover to Amersham finished. So that's the goal. And in order to do that, I think the sensible thing to do is work from the back forwards. So my backdrops, which I'll probably just do as the blue, maybe a little bit of painted scenery. So I need to get that in first, and in order to get that in, I need to know how much height I've got between the deck 1 and basically the inclined up to deck 2. So I'm gonna start on that process, so I'll take you through it. So subframe's made, so 2.4 meters long. So I'm going to leave the end short so that the next deck for the incline can screw into this one so that they're flush. If I do it here, there's just too much going on joining one to the other. So hopefully that will make it a smoother transition, and it'll be the same at the other end, so this one will overhang onto the next one. The last thing I need to do is just do the risers up from the bottom deck. So at this point it wants to be 230 from the top of this deck to the top of the bottom deck below. I'm going to make it so that I can build the risers so that I attach the risers to the bottom deck, and then this will just sit on top of them. So it will go like that. Right, I've got an idea, I'll try it out. Okay, so the plan, that screws there. Then that will sit on the bottom frame, with that being exactly 230 height to the next one. And effectively what I need to do is just keep adjusting these heights. Put a spacer here to set the height so that I can fix these to the subframe and then basically just drop the incline framework on the top, hold it through. So one last change, so I want to be able to lift the incline decks off and on the risers whilst I'm sorting out and laying more track and stuff. So having the wires go through the like this will make it impossible. So I've just done a scallop for the central wires, and the outer wires will come round. So I just need to make sure where I attach them to the bottom of the incline board at that point they don't sort of get squashed by the risers. Okay, up to the loft, try it out. Well, that was fairly easy. So got my risers in, the deck's just sat on top. Clearance is a bit tight, so I need to just take this up a little bit, which I can do quite easily. So, and then the other end's not a problem. So I don't think I need another riser in between because it's so rigid, that deck, it's just not moving. But I got the space to put another one in if I felt I needed to. My backdrops for Wendover are cut to the size and sort of just temporarily in place. And then obviously you can see the incline running above, so I'll do the front of that as blue as well. I always knew this was going to be a bit of a dilemma. I've made Amersham so wide, I've taken sort of the maximum 60 metres, and so as the incline starts to come over Amersham, as you can see. Not much room over the chimneys. Well, it's the next day, so in mulling again, the incline in the loft where it goes over Amersham is just a bit too close. And what I realise is, obviously, because I've got the subframe underneath, effectively it's roughly, when you put the deck on, it's not the right thickness, but it's about 60mm tall. So I was watching Emperelli do's latest massive layout that he's building in his workshop, and one of the things I sort of noticed, obviously I hadn't really thought about, is he's got some sidewalls on some of the critical parts of the layout where the track is very close to the edges, so obviously, so that, you know, you get derailment, your stock doesn't crash into the abyss. And obviously I don't want my rolling stock crashing onto the lower deck, so for the incline I will put some small retaining walls on to help protect it. But it got me thinking that instead of having the support frame underneath to keep the deck flat, I could build it from the top. So I'm going to use the retaining walls to give my deck, incline deck, some strength so it is level, and then that means I can remove the need for the underside, which will give me a bit more height over Amersham as it skims. And then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to hang it from the deck above, if that makes sense. So, and basically I can just hang it in with 3 places, so it'll give me plenty of access to my trains, because there'll just be 3 hangers over that sort of 2.4 meter length. And then obviously, just so that when you're looking at it, you haven't got obviously trains floating in the sky above the deck below, I'll then probably put on a fascia board like this with some magnets. So effectively from down here it will just be blue sky and blue sky, but I'll know there's trains running behind and I can get to them if I've got any problems. Okay, I've got the next sort of substructure in support structure, and I can do the next framework for the next sort of 1.8 meters. So this was the temporary frame I made just so that I could work out where Amersham was going to sort of finish, but I don't need it anymore, so I can use the ends. I just need to make the longer members, so 1.738. So I'll crack on, make that up, get that back up in the loft, and then that'll allow me to carry on the tracks beyond Amersham. So I can work out where the incline now needs to join into the scenery for the next part of the layout. Well, it's the next day, so it's Sunday. So I've managed to go up in the loft, take down the 8 frame. That's the first bracket for the Wendover board, as I need to just chop out a couple of sections. So I need to chop out this bit here, so that's just the incline up from the lower board to the second board, and then having seen how that one comes in close because the carriage's height, I'm gonna just chop out a section here which will be the incline up from the second deck to the top deck, so as at that point the incline should be at the same place. So I'll do that. That's the 2 bits cut out. Didn't take very long. So it's sort of useful having to take this out to do these, because discovered a few steps that I had to go through to get it out. Obviously disconnecting the wiring, but that's fine because I'm going to have each of my main boards will have drop blocks at the end, so that if I have to take a board out I can disconnect the wiring. But what I did discover is, if you've seen any of the early ones where I get the layout in the loft, there's basically a supporting framework here between this 8 frame and the next 8 frame, which is this. And getting this in last time was quite straightforward, but as I was taking it out, I noticed that the space that I had to work in sort of does go through this part of the board. Whilst I'm making up framework along beyond Amersham, I'm going to make up a temporary framework for the middle section as well as the top section, and I'm just going to see if I can actually fit them both in, and if there's a particular order that I need to do it in. So I've got, at the moment, I've just got this bracing it so it doesn't flop over at the top between the first 2 8s. But I'll do that and then see how that goes, because I don't want to discover that having got, obviously my bottom deck, it will go first, then my second deck, and then in 5 or 6 years time when I come to work on the top deck, if I can't actually get it in the full lengths, I need to think about how I build it. I probably could construct it up in the loft actually, rather than just taking up as frames. Anyway, I'll give it a go, because I think it would just help me. I just want some reassurance that I'm not gonna come a cropper in a couple of years time. We'll see what happens. Yeah, okay, if I was making a canoe. So everybody goes on about ply being a nice stable sheet. Well, these have been up in the loft for 2 months, and they were flat when I went up. I've been wondering about how many braces to have. So this one just had one in the middle, but I can see that, yeah, the wood, even when it's ply with that heat changing around, don't know if I want to move. So 3rd lower deck frames in, and I just need to build the 3rd 8 frame, which will go here, and then bolt it all together, and I've got my modified first 8 frame at the other end. Yeah, so the next 2 jobs are just strip some more sheets of the sheet down to some strips so I can make the extend the incline down over Amersham, hanging from the 2nd level deck, and also I'm going to make the 2nd level deck so that I can just test out if I can get the 1st and the 2nd level decks in. And then some more sheet materials on order so I can make 2 more 8 frames. So a quick update on the incline. So back in the loft, as you can see, I've laid the 4 tracks for the Wendover board. So this is where I'm starting my incline point. So if you're trying to understand how I'm determining where the incline starts, so the incline is going to start somewhere over there. Okay, so that's going to be the end of the London boards, but there's obviously nothing there at the moment, and there probably won't be anything there till the end of the year, early next year. So, but I do know is that directly opposite it over here, which is halfway around the layout, my incline will be half the height between the 2 boards. So this is my reference point. Every time I travel 1.8 meters, I know it drops about 3.5 millimeters. So that's basically how I'm working backwards on the incline height. So I measure the distance effectively from that one reference point, and then I keep lowering the support underneath the incline deck. So that's how it's going to work, and these are my up and down DCC for my East Coast line, which will go up eventually up to deck 3, and these 2, the DC line only goes up to deck 2. The incline is going to go over Amersham that I'm going to suspend from the deck 2 spacer board, which I'm going to be making next. So this is my box of Flexi Track, latest one. So the first one lasted me about 18 months. I've gone through half of this box in an hour. Still haven't laid all the track. Maybe I have to work out how many more of these boxes I'm going to need. So to get this one in here, I'm going to need to put up the deck 2 framework. Hi guys, so it's start of the bank holiday weekend, it's the Friday, so just to give you some context for the shot. So I've got another 18mm thick ply sheet and I'm sort of ripping down frames that basically hold the 3 decks, and I've also got some long planks that I can then use to make the level 2 open framework that I will suspend over Amersham, so that I can then hang the incline over Amersham board. So today's Saturday and I need to get the second deck open framework made. So this is obviously going to go span across here, and this is where I need to have the long struts of the open framework such that I can hang the incline up from deck 1 underneath as it rises over Amersham. So I know from the back of the frame, so from here across, it's 12 centimeters, and then that's where my incline starts. The incline's 225 wide, so I need to have the second long strut here so that I can hang either side of it underneath. This is mainly for me, not which is probably to me much to you. This is more for when I come to do this somewhere else in about a year's time, maybe I'll have some recollection of what I did previously. Anyway, hopefully by the end of this it will make sense to you, if you're still watching. So while I've got this down the garage, I'll screw through where the bolts needs to go to hold the framework for deck 2 to the 8 frame front and back. And I've also realised I probably need to come up with some sort of nomenclature, as this thing is just getting too complicated. So between the 8 frames is the gap. So the first one over window is gap 1, so the one over Amersham is going to be gap 2, so that's my G2. Deck 2, and then obviously this is the left hand side and it connects to gap 1. Makes sense to me, and at some point when I'm up at gap 12 or something, I might have finished this layout. So these are the deck 2 end boards for the framework, and so I just need to measure the distance between the 2 of these to work out how long my framework is going to be, as I'm now at the point where every framework is sort of bespoke to that bit of the loft. So I'll measure up and then I can get back to the garage, cut it up, make up the deck 2 open framework and bring it up, and then work out how to suspend the incline over Amersham. Again, back in the garage. So this is the open framework for deck 2 over Amersham, which is where I'm going to be hanging down the incline beneath it, where the incline goes over Amersham that I've been talking about. So this is the extra long strut that I've had to put in so that I can hang from either side of these. So these are 235mm wide long struts. So a little bit different than this one, I suppose, in the structure of it, but yeah, took a while to get there, but I'll get it up. And I've also cut the baseboard for the bit that goes beyond Amersham, so I can start having to think about the track there and what I do with the 3 lines that come out of Amersham. So I've got my up and my down to Marylebone, and I've got my start of my London Underground line, and that needs to split into 2 lines, obviously, which it does do. So out of Amersham there are 3 lines that run out, and then at some point it splits out into the 4 lines that go to the next station. More of that later. I'm panting a bit. So the framework's in. It wasn't easy. I realised that I needed to take off the front part because it was too rigid. I needed a bit of flexibility to squeeze it in. And as I was putting it in, I realised the mistake I've made. So it's one more for the future. So with deck 1, I started with my 8 frame this side of the roof strut, and when I get to the other end, it's this side of the same side of the roof strut, so keeping to the left. The mistake I've made here is I obviously butt up to that one, which is going to be the same as the other end, but the other end I end up on the right side of the roof strut. I should have had the 8 frame here. It just makes this so longer that you can't physically get between the gap. So at least I now know something I need to bear in mind for the future. The important bit is it's in, and it ain't going anywhere anyway. So I'll get the front plate on, and then I can start working on the inclines at the back. Okay, progress. One of the other things I was trying to test was, can I get this in if the deck above is in, or can I get the deck above in if this is in? Definitely can't get this in if the deck above was in place. Obviously building up, that'll work. Also having very deep decks is a challenge, so one way around that, I think, when I get to the other side of the room, and also going further down, it would be to split this frame into two parts, so I could have the framework at the back as one narrower part, and then have the framework at the front as a separate section, and that would make it easier to get them in and out. So yeah, the whole point of this was to try and learn how to build the framework rather than one stage at a time. Try and go and do the whole thing in one big massive go. So yeah, I'll go and mould that one for the next one. So the afternoon's been pretty good. I've managed to get the both inclines in, and the incline over Amersham is basically just suspended on some books at the moment. So conscious of that, I get quite a few people from around the world starting to follow the channel now, which is very nice. So I'll do all of this in inches, which is a measurement I have to be careful with. So I need to make 2 at 9 and 7/16, 2 at 9 and 1/16, and 2 at 8 1/4. I have to go to the back of the drawer, and I'll go for this one. So this is my, obviously, boxwood. This one has a built-in spirit level and a compass for angles. Can't work out who made this one. So it's saying Warrane, yeah, WARRANE establishment. So I'm not sure if they're British or American. So these are my wife's grandfather's tools when he was a cabinet maker. Right, I need to make them all 2 inches wide, so I'll start with that. And for my stop, I'm using a number 3. It just dawned on me that 3 might be because it's a 3-inch clamp, which this all roughly is. As you can see, it's seen a bit of action over time. Not completely square. Anyway, so this one must be 8 1/4. It's good enough for me. So these are the braces that basically hold the incline over Amersham from the deck above, so I get that extra clearance over the buildings, which is a bit more than I would originally had. Right, so I've got the backboards behind Wendover in place with their supports behind, which means I can now start to carry on the scenics in this section here, which will go through like a cutting. I'm going to have it so it's all like going through the Chiltern Hills, which then lead on down to Amersham. You don't have to go very far, and obviously above it I've got the incline. I don't have any worries about so the West Coast line, the main trains we were travelling on are my London Midland stock. Their backmen, they run fine. They'll even go up a 4% incline. This is only 2. And my class 87s, we've got a number of them, but they seem to be okay, and they'll pull up 4 carriages, which is fine, which is good. And also to ran the steam train, Albert Hall, you'll see it at the end, and that ran it fine as well. So I can run, I'm going to have a steam train, or a couple of steam trains based in Marylebone, so they would need to run out to Aylesbury and then come back on a line that's going to run here that'll allow them to get up onto the incline, so they can get up to the second deck. Sadly, there's one train that can't make it, so it's my Intercity 125. So on its own it's okay, but with the 3 carriages and then the other cab, it just can't, there's no traction, the wheels is just sliding all the time. So I think I need to just investigate if I can fix that, as I don't really want to ditch this. This is something I always wanted as my late teens when they first came out, and I got it as an eBay purchase, so I think there's something I can look at online to see if I can improve. Worst comes to the worst, I could just run it around deck 2, which is flat, and it would be fine. It'd still have 20 metres to run around in a loop, but it can go down to London, it just can't get back out. Now I've got this incline in, I can sort out the backboards at the back behind Amersham. There's just a bit of gymnastics to get underneath and around the back, but I can do that. And then I'll put more of the blue fascia for the sky on top. But effectively that's sort of where you're looking up to anyway, so that'll be fine, and there's plenty of access to get in there. Obviously I still need to fix the track down for the 4 lines and do the power and everything, so that's going to become June jobs. I've sort of got the track for the main lines for Wendover now to Aylesbury are permanently in place, and I'm just finishing off Amersham Station downstairs. So I haven't really got onto any scenics this month. I had planned to, but a lot of woodwork and framework is done. But it's not all been up in the loft, up in the garage doing the framework, so I've managed to get the lights in on Amersham and the signage. So this side I've got a couple under the canopy, one at the end, and then the other side I'm going to have 3 as well, and then obviously there's a couple of lights on the bridge, the covered one, and then I'm just in the process of, so the footbridge is glued to this platform, so platform 2 and 3, same with the footbridge that took you across the whole station from the car park. Obviously I've noticed now that there's a few bits I've missed on the red, so I just need to do a bit of touching up. And now I've got this glued in place, I can do some of the drain pipes I wanted to do here. got my music posters on from 80, 81, 82, went to uni in 82. That's what I was listening to at the time. And a few more over there you might recognise. Trying to clamp this down was a bit of fun, so I've just got a bit of a bar to try and hold the base plate down whilst it sets. As you can see, I've finally got the last two shelves up for my inspiration wall. So these top two are going to be part of the DC layout West Coast line. They've got my favourites. My Class 37s, which I remember from my childhood. Really noisy things. Down at King's Cross, often double heading. And those will be the length of my stations that I'll need to build. And then maybe a bit of a surprise. So at Marylebone there was always a turntable, and it allowed them occasionally to run steam specials from Marylebone, 70s, 80s, 90s. So I'm going to include a couple of steam trains at Marylebone. This is my Albert Hall. So if you watch the first episode, I talk about some old stock I have from my childhood. So I think this was train number 4 that I bought from a shop called Baker's in Aylesbury, which was a toy shop / cyclist shop. I think I paid about £12.65 for this. Must have been back in probably about 1977. And it still runs really nicely. And then I managed to pick up some old carriages on eBay. And I've converted over the wheels this month. Okay, it's a very good point to wrap up for this one. So I know I started saying I was hoping to do a lot of scenics in May. It's all ended up as woodwork and framework. Made a lot of progress, which I'm pleased about. I don't know where the backboards are going to go in, and I've also got another sort of 2 meters down here to join in the incline. So the incline will become part of a back seam embankment part for this part of the layout, and one of the lines from the embankment the incline will pass over the 3 lines out of Amersham and come over the other side of it. And also I need to split out my DCC line into 2 ahead of the next station, so I can sort of start planning that out. Not planning to do any more framework in June. I've had enough for a bit. I need to focus on other stuff in the garage to get the workshop sorted out. So yeah, lots of scenicking when I can, but June's our main holiday month, I think, so travelling around a lot, seeing people, so probably won't get as much time. But I will make what progress I can. Get at your own pace. That's the whole point, isn't it? The hobby, you're supposed to enjoy it. So hopefully you've enjoyed this rambling one of framework stuff, and thanks for everybody who likes and subscribed and comments on the last one, and hope maybe I'll catch up with you towards the end of June. Cheers.